When they first serve you the drink, it's got like all this ice in it, and you can't even get the straw to the bottom. You have to do like this squeezing thing. Hi, I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Double Shot of Steelers, and this is needed in more ways than one on this particular day because I just came back from the Steelers practice facility where, nothing really happened. What do you want to know? Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of the Steelers. TJ Watt is not in attendance, and Mike Tomlin spoke as well. There's news to be had within that, and we can talk about that stuff today in various pieces and in various formats. However, the headline, and you can see this right over there, is Rodgers not only practicing, Rodgers working with his teammates, working with his fellow quarterbacks for 2 hours, but also some of the stuff that he had to say afterward. And maybe most notably out of that, we'll be playing you some video on that front shortly, he said that he felt that the decision to come back and play, and specifically as it related to the Steelers, was, and I quote directly, best for my soul. He did not lack for a comfort level in any environment today. That's probably the most striking impression that he made on me. Watching him, and that's all I did. I'm not going to lie here. I made a little bit of time watching DK Metcalf and some time just to humor him with Calvin Austin, but otherwise, and I'm not a quarterback watcher. I tend to go hang with the offensive linemen and so forth. I was all eyes on 8. I wasn't about to be the one bucking anybody's trend. Just to see how things would go. And I could see the interactions that he was having within that pack, meaning the quarterback pack. Now, it has to be understood that Zach Artz, the quarterback's coach of the Steelers, is someone that, as Rodgers disclosed afterward, is somebody that he's known for a long time, like going back to 2006. So most of his interaction was with that guy. And it'd be the same thing to you. You go to a party or something, you go to somebody you know, and eventually you work your way around the room. That's kind of what happened here, at least to my eyes. I thought from a football perspective, I don't know what else he could have shown in this setting, in this circumstance, considering there isn't all that much that you can show as a quarterback. I'm going to give you a little bit of a taste of that coming up in a little bit on the break, some video footage that I shot from the sidelines. And he's there, okay? And if he's healthy, and if he can somehow uncover his 2021 form and bring it back, if he's that level of healthy, if he's that level of spry and all that other stuff, if he can wash off the other jets from his skin, from his whatever has infected his well-being from being a part of those teams in New Jersey, then you've got something. If not, then you don't. But as day one of a mini camp goes, it was something that was absolutely worth paying attention to. It was an interesting day over there, to say the very least. I'm going to throw one other thing at you, and that was the impact that he had on others who were around him. There were people coming outside to watch who don't normally come outside to watch. There were people, meaning outside from the facility. I mean, just workers and so forth. And then when you look over to the right from where I was standing, and you see the pit players flooding out onto this upper, they have you can call it an observation deck or whatever. It's just a second level that's outside, just filling up every part of the railing, taking turns. The pit players coming out to see Rodgers. They're seeing somebody who is literally a living legend. That's not an assessment of mine. It's not even an opinion. It's a fact. He's one of the 5 best quarterbacks who's ever lived. So all of that I found to be very interesting. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Chris Halleck, who was with me over there. In fact, Chris is still over there. I came over here to do this particular show, but we'll be hooking up with them and show you these videos right after this.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Jay Moods gets us started today. Says, Chris, my love for the Steelers allows me to swallow the Aaron Rodgers signing, but man, it's a hard pill. Look, I get that. Okay. We're reporting on what we're seeing. Okay. I've expressed how I feel about it for a long time now, what I felt would have been the right move for the franchise. He's here. He's QB1. He was out there today. I thought he carried himself well on the field. And Chris, he came off the field and answered everything other than the ridiculous question about his previous employer.
I mean, he even answered questions about the wedding ring that he's wearing on his left hand, which hasn't been there before. I mean, literally answered questions about everything. But no, I thought he answered a lot of the questions that he was asked, with as much honesty as he normally does. I mean, anybody who's watched Aaron Rodgers on any show or podcast he's ever been on, he's usually a pretty honest, truthful guy, straightforward guy. And, to hear him really credit Mike Tomlin with probably the biggest reason why he's here.
Yeah.
And then also saying it was good for his soul. Like that was interesting too. Those were two of the things that really stood out to me.
Yeah, I hope, Chris, that doesn't get yanked out of context for some people, because it can. You can look at that and think, oh, there's one of those Zen freaky whatever things of his. But if you heard the whole thing, he said, when I've made decisions based on ego, they've not gone well. This is the full context. And when I've based them on how I feel, where it comes from in the soul, they have gone well. So that was his way of saying, regardless of how you feel about it, we're sharing, okay? That he was saying that he felt that it was right, and that ever since he's been in Pittsburgh, which has now been, I think, 3 or 4 days that he's been here, that he's had a chance to meet guys. I thought was, really, he went out of his way to reference Tom Arts, the quarterback's coach, because he knew him, because he knows him. And, to see him do that, to see him have that kind of attachment to somebody who's already in the fold, that's pretty significant. I'm going to play a couple of these. I'm going to play actually one of these clips right now. This is the one I shot. It's 40 seconds of the Steelers mini camp today, all of it focused on Rodgers, because one of the questions that's absolutely going to come, and it's going to come for a long time now, is how did he look? How did he look? How did he look? Well, here you can judge that for yourself. All right, that obviously was Rodgers for 40 seconds. And we don't have any sound because they were pumping this crazy music. It was so loud and everything else, and it ends up costing us on copyrights and whatever, so there's no sound. But you can see his throws and everything are, I'm not going to stun anybody by saying that Rodgers can throw the football. You can just see the ease with which he does it. And if you watch the whole session, as I did, you can see the ease with which he throws on routes that are not normally easy. Go right ahead, Chris, because I know this is in your wheelhouse, this conversation.
Yeah, when we're talking about sheer arm talent, the ability to throw the football to any portion of the field, he does it. He's done it as good as anybody in the game. over the course of his career. And of all the things that have possibly diminished as he's aged, his arm really hasn't. When we're talking about issues, physical issues with Aaron Rodgers, it's more about, he's not as mobile as he used to be. He's not a statue, but he's not, the scrambler he was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But, man, he can still sling it. And it was easy to see today on the field, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's the part that jumps out. And you can see even little things like the way he clearly, without even thinking about it, adjusts his arm angle to a certain throw and whatever. And it's not the sort of thing that you're used to seeing in a practice / camp type setting. The other thing, and we've made this point for quite a while now as it relates to Rodgers and the throws, usually these older quarterbacks, the guys into their 40s or in Ben Roethlisberger's case, the late 30s and so forth, you're talking about an arm issue. You're talking about something. With Ben, it was the elbow. With Peyton, it was just, my goodness, just the whole arm. I mean, he just had nothing left from the collarbone down to the hand. Okay. Of all of Rodgers' many injuries that have come up, and he had a bunch of them last season, the arm just doesn't show up on that report. You just don't see any parts of the arm. Could that mean something, Chris?
I mean, when we're talking about some of the all-time greats that have played really well late in, like at a later age, and it doesn't always have to be in their 40s, but I think of Elway with the Broncos. I think of Tom Brady, obviously, with the Buccaneers, Brett Favre with the Vikings. No, he didn't win a Super Bowl, but went to an NFC championship. And obviously Peyton Manning with the Broncos. Rodgers is probably, in terms of physical shape, probably right up there with maybe Elway or Brady in terms of the best shape of all those guys. And definitely in terms of arm strength. The biggest question, I think, is, and he did talk a little bit about it today, is how well can he thrive in this offense, and how well can the rest of that offense support him, where they're not having to rely on him to be this MVP level Rodgers again. How about we just get 85, 90% of that guy, which would be a wonderful win, and support him with a really efficient, dare I even say, explosive running game. And then you're talking about a potential legitimate top 10 offense if Rodgers does find that form and the familiarity with a lot of the Shanahan concepts, which he even specifically mentioned today, being in Arthur Smith's offense, will definitely help him learn the offense a little bit faster. So I'm really curious to see how he does, because, again, the physical limitations aren't as much as I think you normally see for a 40 or 41-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, Hadas says, DK, how is a quarterback at that age any different than an older starting pitcher if they're not a closer? It's easy. The starting pitcher isn't getting his rear end kicked every Sunday. Okay. I don't know how else to put that.
They're not all Nolan Ryan throwing no-hitters into his 40s.
Yeah, well, in fairness, that might not be the best example, because Nolan Ryan would do the butt kicking himself. Okay.
True.
If somebody charges his mound.
Oh, that's the most famous Nolan Ryan story, and I think that's what when he was in.
Who was that poor SOB?
Robin Ventura.
Robin Ventura from the White Sox, right? Just broke a headlock and just taking turns, just pounding away at the dude's forehead. You want the arm, but you also the main thing that you think of when you watch him. When I was watching him today was, find a way to build up some kind of consistency in terms of health. Find a way to make sure that you're adjusting to your age as a health thing, and stay on the field and stay mobile. Watching him again when they were doing some rollouts and stuff. Again, I hope in showing you that video that you see the extent to which this is difficult to evaluate anything. Okay. But I didn't see him looking different than the other three quarterbacks going through the drills. Do you follow me? Did you?
Yeah, I mean, going through individual drills, and plus Rodgers didn't participate in any team drills today, which don't read much into that. Even Mike Tomlin shot that down really quick, saying it's a lot more important for Will Howard to get June snaps than a 4-time MVP. So yeah, there's almost nothing to take away other than the fact that, hey, can he still move around? And that's obviously the case right now.
Yeah, Sush Math says, is this team better than last year's Jets? Absolutely not. The Jets just finished atop the National Hockey League, the regular season standings. This was a good hockey team. Don't hold their playoffs against them. Why do you have to be so petty like that? Don't do that. James Galloway wants to know how much Aaron Rodgers paid for number 8. That, of course, having belongs to Corliss Waitman. I'm guessing that was a pretty easy one to get.
Probably.
I didn't have a chance to run into Corliss. He was there, obviously.
Yeah, he was there. I didn't get a chance to ask him either. Unfortunately, I was in that gigantic scrum waiting around for Aaron Rodgers to talk.
Yeah, no. Danny Blay wants to know how I looked out there, Chris. How did I look?
I mean, tall.
Tall, yeah, not as tall as the actual guy he's asking about.
Oh my
Isn't it
gosh.
funny when you watch DK Metcalf in the wide receiver drills? And you and I were both down there when that happened. And here's Calvin Austin, and they have these white, like they look like cricket wickets. Okay, that the wide receivers are supposed to run under. It's something to just make sure that you keep moving at full speed, even though you've got some interruptions to you. And here's Metcalf standing over Cal like he's one of Cal's legs, or Cal's one of his legs, I should say, other way around. I mean, my goodness, to see him finally in person. I know that all gets overshadowed by the quarterback being there, but seeing Metcalf wearing that uniform is quite the reminder.
Yeah, he is a specimen, and he moves so well for a man his size. It's quite impressive. It's a lot different than George Pickens, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I mean, there's just something about him when you see him where you just go, okay, so yeah, that's right. That guy is here too. And yet at the same time, the big man that was singled out, or one of the people that was singled out by Rodgers was Darnell Washington, because Darnell will have that impact on you. Unlike anybody else on the team, Darnell's not the tallest. Darnell's not the heaviest. Darnell is just the most Darnellist, where you just look at him and go, who thought to make a human like that? That size. Who did that?
Yeah. It's always impressive to be standing close to Darnell Washington, just because you're just like, this is a different person. Like, this is unlike any other human being on the planet to me.
Honestly, I thought I'd never see somebody that would have that impact on me the way Chooks did, and he does.
Right.
You know,
I mean,
where
this guy is
wow.
This guy, I mean, with how much Broderick Jones has slimmed down, I want to say they're about the same size right now. Honestly, they look about the same size.
Yeah, CJ
And
says that
one's playing left tackle, another one's playing tight end.
CJ says Corliss Waitman is probably wearing a blank jersey, but no, he wasn't. I don't remember what number it was, but he wasn't. It really doesn't matter. William says, how much do Mason's skills match up with Rodgers? Dude, we love you. You're here every day. I have nothing bad to say to you, but that's a hard thing to do with this format. And really, one thing I never did here was compare, let's talk about Aaron Rodgers' career body of work and then put it next to Mason Rudolph's. I mean, I'm not an idiot, okay? The arguments that I've made were based on what would be best for the team right now, based on the respective points in both their careers, injury risk factor, future at the position, et cetera, and stuff like that. It wasn't taking one against the other, who looks good and who doesn't look good. Chris, is there anything that you saw in Rodgers in watching him out on the field? Because I didn't even ask you that when I was standing there with you. Is there anything that you saw where you went, for any reason, good, bad, whatever?
I was definitely once you see that he's obviously not going to be participating in team drills, then I was just focused on how engaged he was. What was he doing in terms of interacting with teammates, talking with coaches, and there was a lot of talking with Arthur Smith. There was a lot of going over to Will Howard every now and then and getting in his ear. Same thing with Mason Rudolph. Obviously Skylar Thompson too, but then even then, like there was one time it was like him just going over and chatting up with Jack Sawyer, a complete opposite side of the ball, and then talking with a couple of other guys that you just wouldn't normally think, oh well, Rodgers is obviously going to go talk with Tom Arth, the quarterback's coach, and the offensive coordinator, and those guys. he was very engaged, and like so much so that he was even like when Arthur Smith would be calling the plays in, he'd be putting his helmet up to his ear and be listening. I mean, I can actually report on this because he actually said he was doing it, but I physically saw it. He would put his helmet up to his ear so he would hear how it would be coming through the helmet, so that he can already kind of get used to that as well. So he can hear how it sounds when the plays are coming in. Just very, very engaged throughout the entire practice, even though he didn't take one rep of team drills whatsoever.
James Foreman says, I like this question here. He says, I believe that Aaron Rodgers will throw Calvin Austin into a good wide receiver this season. He'll have close to 1,000 yards. Chris, this is one of your favorite subjects when it comes to wide receivers who can move the way that Cal can. What exactly does James mean when he says, because I know James knows, when he says to throw Calvin into it, and how much timing and experience is going to be necessary between the two for that to be the case?
Well, it's going to be really important because if for whatever reason the Steelers do strike out and don't add another receiver to this room, a lot's going to be asked of Calvin Austin. And a lot of that, especially in the quick game, is all about timing. And that's what Rodgers' game is. He is very, very efficient and always has been, and even was last year with the Jets in the quick game. But that's all on timing. You know, I mean, whether you're running a slant, an arrow, a stick route, whatever it is, you've got to, sorry, the wind is blowing so bad over here. Timing is everything. And Calvin has really grown as a route runner. And so how can they work out that timing together? You know, how can Calvin make sure that he's in the right spot at the right time so that when Aaron trusts him to be in the right spot at the right time, is it going to be there, or is it going to be a situation in which he's not there and now Aaron's throwing an interception and it looks like it's on the quarterback, but really it's because Aaron expected him to be there and he wasn't there. So if Calvin can be a really efficient, whoever it is, be a good route runner for Aaron, especially in those kinds of situations, I think whoever it is going to reap the benefit of that for sure.
Phil asks if I'm going to be here tomorrow. Yeah, I mean, we have a show. I'll be, yeah, absolutely. 4:00 every day. Earlier in the day, while Chris is over at Steelers, I'll be covering the Penguins' introduction of Dan Muse as their new head coach. So we'll be going divergent paths tomorrow. That's why I made it a point to be over there with the Steelers today. Chris, let's take a little bit of a listen here to some of what Rodgers had to say today, specifically regarding Mike Tomlin and what went into his decision, to play, but also to play for the Steelers.
I mean, that was part of it. Yeah, I mean, I liked Arthur. Obviously, I've known Tom forever. A big attraction was Mike Tomlin. I've gone against him over the years. The way that the conversations went between him and I, between whatever it was in March or April, and the last Sunday when I called him, was some of the coolest conversations I've had in the game. Definitely with the head coach. So he's a big reason I'm here. I believe in him and excited to play for him.
What about him makes you feel that way? Why do you say those things about Mike Tomlin? What has he kind of shown you or rubbed off on you in these?
I mean, we've had some great conversations, and I just appreciated the way that he treated me throughout the process.
Now, there's nothing that would surprise anybody about hearing that, you'd have a great conversation with Mike Tomlin, especially when he's really invested in something. I mean, one can only imagine, right? At the same time, I thought it was both striking and incidentally validating toward the idea, the concept that this was Tomlin's move. Okay. And all we've heard from absolutely anybody involved is that this was Tomlin's move. This was Tomlin's guy. This was Tomlin's pursuit. And here again from Rodgers himself, we hear that this was a major factor in his choosing Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, and you can look at that in a number of ways. You can look at it as a detriment that he just gets really, he clings on to an idea. Last year it was Russell Wilson. This year it's Aaron Rodgers. But you can also look at it through the lens of, listen, this guy wants to win. And that's never been an issue when it comes to judging Mike Tomlin, is his insatiable desire to try to win and to win a Super Bowl. And when you hear him talk about his lamenting of not getting Marquise Pouncey a ring and how he still wants to get Cam Hayward and TJ Watt and those guys a ring. And he feels that Aaron Rodgers is this guy, so he's going to go about things the way that he felt he needed to go throughout this entire process. And obviously that had a very positive impact on Aaron Rodgers. He could have given him any kind of spiel, and then Rodgers said, you know what, I appreciate it, but I'm going to move on. He even said, I didn't need to do this. There's no need to, it's not like he's never won a Super Bowl or MVP, anything like that. So obviously Mike Tomlin's effect on Rodgers is a huge reason why he's here. And again, you can dissect that however you want to, but absolutely, when you talk about Tomlin's ability to get players to buy into things,
yeah,
he's among the best.
Yeah, we're going to take one more today while we still have Chris on, and let Chris get back to his day job over there. Melfo says, hey, DK, do you think that Aaron Rodgers will request to go get his big dog, Mercedes Lewis, who, by the way, he did reference when he was saying Darnell Washington, biggest since whatever. He's a free agent, I believe, since the Steelers are down a tight end. I said on yesterday's show, I'm going to reiterate it today, that I have no issue with a quarterback who comes in with this volume of experience and success, who says at this stage, hey, what are we missing? Okay, well, we're missing a WR2 and we're missing a TE something, right? And he says, well, how about this guy? I mean, I know him like the back of my hand and whatever else. I have no issue with that. And I'd be really surprised if the Steelers did. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but I'd bet it comes up. Not Mercedes necessarily. I just mean in general.
Yeah, I mean, when talking about possibly acquiring, another receiver, obviously the name that keeps coming up is Alan Lazard, because I swear Alan Lazard has never had a quarterback not named Aaron Rodgers throw him the football. But Mercedes Lewis, I don't know. That name has not been connected to the Steelers whatsoever. And at this stage, I'd be very, very surprised if that's what actually ended up happening in terms of adding a fourth tight end to the mix. So I'm going to say no, probably not. But, hey, you never know. You never know.
We have Rick Love says, Tomlin, I'm sure, played a big role, but the offensive line potential, a run-first approach, and defense played a big role. No, man, let's not start inflating this. Okay? One team was involved in this. Okay, they tried to get others involved. They tried to get the Vikings involved multiple times. The Vikings said no. So it's not like this. There was a supermarket aisle that he went down and said, "Ooh, look, Steelers here. They have a nice run-first approach and whatever." This was a matchup. I actually believe the way Rodgers himself laid it out today. Okay, where it was almost some Zen sounding thing where it was just, okay, this works for me. This makes sense. I like this. I'm going to do this. But it's not as if he was going through some multiple box checklist over which teams would have this or that. The Steelers are going to be a competitive team. Why? They just started a season 10-3. Everyone else can throw that out. I don't. It's going to be a competitive team. We'll see what actually comes out of that. Chris, we're going to let you go, and we're going to, for everybody else, stay with us, and we're going to come right back with a little bit more of this program. Okay, I'm not going anywhere. Chris actually does have a lot of stuff to do. And I can tell when he's a little fidgety, like, come on, let me go. So we're letting him go. He's still got the camera on too. I don't think he can hear me though. You guys bring whatever you got as it relates to Rodgers. Bring as it relates to actually anything over there today. Michael says 10-3 is something that a lot of people tend to forget. Of course they do. They lost 5 in a row, and I get that part. Okay, but it still happened. And if you take your 32,000 feet view on this, then you're going to have, a much fairer outlook on what the Steelers actually did and what they're capable of in 2025. The question that I've been posing all week is whether or not what that is good enough to contend for the Super Bowl. I think more needs to be done. I also think it's getting a little bit late for more things to be done here. Sean says the fact that Miami is holding out Jonnu Smith from camp, doesn't that increase the odds that he's traded? It can, but I don't know their situation. Like this, TJ Watt's not in this camp, and we could barely get anybody to even mention it. I don't think that's TJ's intent. I think him and his agent want everybody to go, oh no, they're going to lose TJ. And you can't do that. And I remember making Cam upset. When was that, a year ago or 2 years ago before he signed his contract? And Cam's like, he comes up to me in Latrobe, like, can't you at least like pretend you're getting angry over this? I'm like, Cam, you're a Steeler. You're not going anywhere. And the same thing is going to apply to TJ. He's not going anywhere, and nobody's going to take it seriously. If anybody is taking it seriously, if anybody is thinking, wow, they could really lose TJ here, do me a favor, chime in here. Let me know who that is that would feel that way. J-Bo says the running back room has potential to be good enough. I think, Jay, again, talk about things that are going to get overshadowed, not just today, but even throughout camp and into the season. A guy that's going to make a difference here, a real difference, is Caleb Johnson. And that's not me making a prediction or whatever. That's me passing along to you what I'm hearing over there. Okay. They don't see him as, hey, here's this neat little rookie we're going to try to work in when we can. He is going to be part of this offense, and they are not going to wait to make that happen. And if you think about how preseasons go, and how much of that is running the ball, you're going to see a lot of this kid through those 3 games. In fact, you're probably going to see too much of him. You're going to see enough that you're going to go, whoa, sit him down. It's going to be something that comes across like that. Rick Love says, I'm a little bit concerned with the Aaron Rodgers, DK Metcalf connection. Metcalf can get sloppy with running routes. Geno Smith used to complain about it. How do you see that connection developing? The best answer that I can give you, Rick, is that I need to see more of Metcalf with my own eyes. I've shared with you guys before that I cover 3 Pittsburgh teams. I lock in on 3 Pittsburgh teams. I don't pay attention to the Seattle Seahawks. If I see you on highlights, I'll see you on highlights. I need to see how these two get together. And there's another thing that I do in the coverage is I always believed that once you get here, you come with some extent of it's the word I'm looking for, the term I'm looking for, a clean slate. You come here and you're like, all right, let's just start over again. Now, not for everybody. Okay. If you got some criminal track record or something like that, we're going to treat you like that. But if you're just a guy, I'm not judging you by what you did for the Jaguars or the Falcons or whoever. I want to see what you have that you're putting right in front of me. Christian Hart says, just when I thought I was out on Aaron Rodgers, I'm pulled in after his interview, meaning today. The guy is great on the microphone. He convinced me that he's all in with us as a nation. I mean, he's always been special on the microphone. I mean, that was not his first time in front of cameras and mics and all that other stuff. Okay. The term I used earlier in this program was comfort. He showed a comfort level both on and off the field. So when he said, for example, I don't even remember which reporter asked him to talk about his previous employer. And he said, if that's what you're trying to get me into, it's not going to work. But he didn't flip. He didn't get nasty. He just said it as if he'd been dealing with that many cameras and microphones for the better part of his adult life. And that's, that's not going to be something that should surprise anybody here. The PEF comes in and says, do you think having a veteran future Hall of Fame quarterback will challenge Tomlin's control of the game plan? No, I believe that it will hijack it completely or close to completely. And I really don't even think I'm exaggerating. Again, I'm only reiterating stuff that I've said for a long time. This head coach wants to focus on the defense. Not entirely. He doesn't slam the door on, listening to ideas and whatever. And he's going to be in on the big meeting that comes up with the big game plan for the big game that weekend. But If Tomlin looks across the field and sees Rodgers and Arthur Smith powwowing, believe me, he's not going to feel the need to go doing a James Franklin across the field to say, hey, what's going on? What's happening? You guys are talking about something without me. You can't do that. That's not him. That's not him. If he finds somebody else to deal with the offense, specifically with the quarterback position, he will be the happiest head coach around. David Harrison says, does Caleb seem to be hanging with the offensive line? No, but that's because that's not how these drills go. You hang with your positional groups. I mean, that's just the way things happen. You know, if you're with the quarterbacks, that's where Rodgers was today. He was with the 4 quarterbacks, meaning he was one of them as well, including, for those who don't know who all of them were, Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, and Skylar Thompson, who's in on a futures contract, almost certain to be the number 4 heading into Latrobe. Railway Rarities asks DK, what band is your intro? That's a local group called Seven Color Sky. Check them out. They have a YouTube channel. You can hear their stuff. They're outstanding. They're friends of mine. Really appreciate them on a lot of levels. And they made that music available to us. Phil says, but Tomlin is the head coach, not the DC. Oh, is he now? I'm not sure if that's really the case. The PEF denies outright that he is the butthole. I never thought he was. James Foreman says Aaron Rodgers will let all of his wide receivers know where he wants them when it comes to route running, including Metcalf. Rodgers has that and has always had that air about him. When he's on the field, you don't have to wonder who's in charge, and you don't have to wonder, if you think about it from a different perspective, who's right. That's something I think is going to be that's going to be interesting to observe in the days and the weeks to come in advance of the season, is how certain Steelers who maybe wouldn't have responded a certain way to somebody else, anybody else, I'm not picking on anybody, but they'll go, whoa, that's Aaron Rodgers yelling at me. This is not good. I'm not going to look good in this one. That's the kind of thing that maybe makes a little difference. David Quinn describes himself as being really late to the party. Yeah, you actually kind of are. Logan says, how nervous are you with Broderick Jones being tasked to protect the blind side of the 41-year-old pocket passing quarterback, given his struggles to start his career? There are a couple of things into this. And again, none of this is new because they're here or whatever. One of the things that we've brought up a lot is that Rodgers has the NFL's fastest release time. And if you don't know exactly what that's like, think back to Ben's final season when Ben looked and he saw, Kendrick Green snapping the ball to him, whatever. And Ben was like, I've got one chance to get through this thing alive. Okay. Not intact, alive. And that's to get rid of the football. So Ben would get it. And it was like, volleyball setting. He would just get rid of it right away. Now, Rodgers isn't quite that extreme. He wasn't in 2024, but he didn't have a good line there. He didn't have a good line with the other Jets. He's ideally going to be able to have some time to throw from the pocket, but if he doesn't, he's going to be able to move the ball quickly. Now, again, that doesn't take Broad off the hook here. You want your first round left tackle to not be some liability that you're adjusting for. You want him to be an asset. That'd be kind of nice, right? Eric Shula points out that another bit of news today, which, by the way, any other day would have been a headline for us, was when Carl Dunbar told us that Derek Harmon's going to be running with the ones. He's going to be the starting left defensive end. For those of you who came in later, haven't been tuning into Steelers news on our site today, Harmon is just going to be out there. So he says left defensive end. You know what I hear for the rest of it? Well, presuming that anybody takes seriously the 3-4 foundation of this defense, you've got Harmon, Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward. And if you have two of them out there, what does Mike Tomlin say about the one bone, 2 dogs or something like that, then they can do the dogs and bones thing in Latrobe. But Harmon being out there is as a starter tells you a lot, not only of what they hope to get out of him, but what they've already seen out of him. It's not like stitching a C onto the hockey player's sweater and saying, you're a captain, so we're making you captain here so you can become a leader. No, you've got to actually show something there. Dwight Jefferson says 2 squirrels. They weren't squirrels. They were definitely dogs. Come on, somebody bailed Dwight out from this embarrassment. They're not squirrels. They're dogs. Paulie says that they're dogs, and he misspells it. He says DAWG. Look at Paulie. Now she's looking at me. She's like, she does not have the animated red hat to put on my head. That's for the Ramon show. We'll use it tomorrow. It's 2 dogs, 1 bone. Correct, Sticky B, who comes in every once in a while from out of nowhere to let everybody know that he's watching. Danny wants to know, is Troy Fautanu 100%? I had a good long conversation with him last week. He is beyond 100%. He wishes the season was starting tomorrow. He has nothing and nobody holding him back. He's not just ahead of schedule. He is completed the schedule. He is ready to play football. And by the way, I saw earlier somebody asked about a couple other guys. Cameron Johnston, the punter, 100%, booting the ball, no issues whatsoever. Everybody was there, by the way, for mandatory minicamp except TJ, so you don't have to ask if so-and-so was there. The only ones that I didn't see all that actively involved, Chris Boswell, what are you going to do? You're going to have him, blow out a hamstring in minicamp. Give me a break. He'll be kicking when he gets to Latrobe. If he kicked, I didn't see it, but it didn't. Again, it doesn't matter. He was there. Everybody was there except TJ. And I'm going to say this once more, not just to stick it in your collective faces, but because it's true. The TJ news is having 0 impact on this community right now, in our little chat community. 0. You guys aren't moved in the slightest that TJ is not at minicamp. And it's not because of all the other stuff. It's just not. I know what you're up to here. You just can't begin to take seriously this idea that TJ is not going to be a Steeler. Nor should you. It's going to get done. By the way, Mike Tomlin's remarks on that front were something that he probably worked on at least a little bit. And he'll do that from time to time. He'll come up with some kind of wording that he knows will make some kind of extra difference. This was the exact quote from Tomlin now. Certainly we'd like him to be here, but certainly not surprised by where we are. We've expressed a desire to get the business done. He has as well. We'll continue to work. We've been here before. The end. If there's anything notable out of that statement, and even this doesn't qualify, I don't think, is he says, we've expressed a desire to get the business done, meaning Tomlin's not about to throw it back in the face of TJ and his representation that TJ actually has a signed contract for the coming year. He's not doing that. He's saying instead, look, we don't want him going into a lame duck year either. We want to get it done as well. The number of situations in my career of covering Pittsburgh sports, Steelers, Penguins, or Pirates, any of the 3, in which both teams expressed that they wanted to have an extension, that they really wanted to get something done, that it didn't happen, is exactly 1. Take a guess before I tell you what it is. Exactly once it happened. Every other time, which is my point here, it did happen. It did come through. Only once it didn't. Justin says, any legit reasons for why they stretch this out rather than that's just what they do? It's what both sides do. The one side is going to ask for something that's a little high. They're going to be influenced by Myles Garrett, who, by the way, made a complete fool of himself again today in saying that he was going to put Rodgers in his graveyard or something because he's now in the AFC North. That was mature. Dude's a real winner too, huh? And I mean that in the actual like winning sense. This is somebody who talks an awful lot, who has won nothing in the National Football League. Mark gets it correct. He says it was Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. Lev had the worst agent of all time. Actually, a bunch of you got it right. Good job on that one here. I'll take a couple more today here. Yeah, Rod Woodson says, Josh Dobbs, that's before my coverage time. I'm not that old, dude. Michael Patrick McCracken says, I know you might criticize this comment. I don't like having even $1 a month on auto pay. I'd rather pay $50 for a 4 or 5 year membership. I would do that. Mike, we have no control of what YouTube does. Yeah, sorry.
But he's welcome to contribute with stickers.
Yeah, if you want to get stickers or something like that, we can consider you a member or something. I don't know what to tell you. We have no control over the platform. We do it over our own if you want our coverage on DK Pittsburgh Sports, which is just totally separate everything from YouTube. We definitely have stuff that's in that line, but we can't control YouTube. I'm pretty sure that the Google gods are going to have some say in that. Let's get one more here from Frosty Yinzer. He says Roman Wilson's going to fill in at outside rusher for TJ during minicamp because he can do anything. And Captain Crunch comes to Garrett's defense and says, I hate to defend the likes of Miles, but I presume what he meant is the graveyard that he puts up for Halloween. He makes quarterback headstones. The guy, you know what? I'll bet you're right. Because that actually makes way more sense, doesn't it? I hadn't even thought about that, but I'm aware of the thing that he does with the headstones. Okay. I'm still an idiot, but whatever. That's fine. Okay. That I can deal with. Guys, when we come back, we're going to take care of a little bit of business here on the Double Shot Show. Man, I have this whole item ripping the heck out of Myles Garrett on our site right now, on our Steelers feed. And now I can only imagine. I haven't opened the comments yet. I'll bet everybody's ripping me. And rightly so. I did not put 2 and 2 together. They're all referring to the Halloween thing. Thanks to Eric in California for the $10 contribution. Thanks to Damien for dropping the 5. Malvo with a 5 of his own. Kerry Russell always comes in with the 1. And then Michael there at the end with the 5 of his own, threatening us to pay $50. I wish we could, adjust the platform to everything that we'd want, but it just doesn't exist. But I actually kind of know what you mean with the dollar thing or anything. It just, what ends up happening is your credit card thing looks like this long, even though it's not really that much in the way of charges. On that note, we have 2,425 members, 2425, with a goal. And by the way, it's time to start probably turning up the volume on this a little bit. The goal has been to hit 3,000 by the day that the Steelers report to Latrobe. Now, we've been talking about that as if it's some far-flung thing, when in fact, today is the 10th of June, and I'm going to open up this thing here. That's not it. The training camp schedule. I don't have it right in front of me, but I believe it's July 25 is the opening of the Steelers training camp. And in that event, we're down to like 6 weeks to hit this goal. And I'm not feeling all that, like it's a slam dunk or something. I did for a while. We were spiking there pretty good. And then it kind of quieted down a lot here. Mandatory mini camp. I'm still looking for. Here it is. Training camp schedule. The Steelers reporting day is July 23. That's a month and 13 days. It's 6 weeks from now. That's how long we have to get to 3,000. So if you've been holding out like TJ, don't also be like TJ. Eventually sign the way TJ will. Guys, listen, I appreciate everybody jumping on today. A fun and special show. We're going to have another one of these tomorrow and then Thursday. And then we're going to see if we can work up some kind of members only thing later on this weekend. So in the interim, bye-bye.